So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain. Now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We don't want anything. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it. By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason. He made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him, and it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Debemos aprender de la historia.
We must learn from history and cannot play Russian roulette with the fate of millions of people. The powers involved in this conflict must immediately cease hostilities and commit to dialogue and diplomacy. And the rest of us must act consistently, defending now the same values that we defend when we talk about Ukraine, Gaza, Venezuela or Greenland. Because the question is not whether or not we are in favor of the Ayatollahs. No one is. Certainly not the Spanish people, and of course not the Spanish government either. The question, rather, is whether or not we are on the side of international law, and therefore of peace.
Spain has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases. And that's all right. We don't want anything. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it. But we don't have to. But they were unfriendly. And so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people. But they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain.
A question on Spain. Are you satisfied with today?
Oh, I think Spain's terrible what they've done. No, I do. They're the only country that won't pay the full up. They want to stay at 2%. I think it's terrible. And, you know, they're doing very well. The economy is very well. And that economy could be blown right out of the water with something bad happening. You know, Spain is the only country that... Are you from Spain?
Yeah.
Good, congratulations. You're the only country that is not paying. I don't know what the problem is. I think it's too bad. So we'll make it up. You know what we're going to do? We're negotiating with Spain on a trade deal. We're going to make them pay twice as much. And I'm actually serious about it. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain. Now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We don't want anything. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it. By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason. He made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him, and it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Here's a clear, up-to-date summary of what's actually happening between Spain and the United States on this issue, and it corrects some misunderstandings from earlier reports. AP News. 1. Spain's original stance. Spain's government under Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez made it clear it would not allow U.S. use of Spanish military bases, such as Rota and Morón, for strikes against Iran that are not authorized by the UN Charter. This refusal is tied both to legal norms and to Spain's opposition to the growing conflict in the Middle East. Sanchez publicly said no to war, explaining Spain would not be complicit in actions it sees as contrary to its values or international law. U.S. reaction. President Donald Trump reacted strongly, calling Spain a terrible ally and threatening to cut off trade or impose economic penalties because Madrid refused cooperation and also hasn't agreed to raise defense spending to 5% of GDP. Spain is currently below NATO's 2% target. U.S. officials, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, said Spain's refusal put American lives at risk in the context of the Iran conflict. 3. White House press briefing confusion. On March 4th, 2026, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters that Spain had heard the president's message loud and clear and had agreed to cooperate with the U.S. military. She said U.S. and Spanish forces were coordinating in recent hours. 4. Spain immediately denied it. Moments later, Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares and other officials flatly rejected the White House claim. They said Spain has not changed its position at all on refusing U.S. military cooperation or use of bases for the Iran conflict. There has been no conversation with Washington in which Madrid agreed to such cooperation. Their stance remains consistent. Any use of Spanish territory must be within existing bilateral agreements and UN frameworks. 5. What's really going on? No confirmed Spanish agreement to let the U.S. use its bases or to participate militarily. The reported turnaround by Spain has not been verified. Spanish officials insist their policy has not changed, even a comma. The only source claiming cooperation was the White House press office. Spanish government sources immediately rejected that. 6. Broader context. This dispute comes during rising tensions over the U.S.-Israeli offensive against Iran, which has raised global concerns about escalation and legality. Spain's government is pushing for diplomatic solutions and is wary of repeating past Middle East conflicts. In short, Spain did not agree to cooperate with the U.S. military after its initial refusal, despite what was said in the press briefing. The claim of a turnaround is contested and denied by Spanish authorities. The situation highlights a diplomatic rift between the U.S. and Spain over the Iran war and use of military bases. Here's the most current picture, as of today, Friday, March 6, 2026, of where the United States stands on the dispute with Spain over military cooperation and related economic tensions. Reuters. 1. U.S. government position. The U.S. Trump administration has taken a firm, confrontational stance towards Spain in recent days. The White House claimed that Spain finally agreed to cooperate militarily after Washington's pressure. That statement came from White House press briefings, with officials saying U.S. and Spanish forces were coordinating. U.S. leaders, including President Donald Trump, have sharply criticized Spain's refusal to allow use of its military bases for striking Iran, and have personally insulted Spain's leadership and NATO role. Trade threats and economic pressure are part of Washington's messaging. Trump and U.S. officials have publicly threatened to cut off or penalize Spanish trade over Madrid's refusal to support U.S. military operations. 2. Spanish government response. Spain has rejected the U.S. claim of cooperation, saying Madrid's position has not changed. It is still not allowing Spanish bases to be used for attacks on Iran. Spanish foreign officials say there is no shift in policy on this issue. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez reiterated Spain's opposition to the war and criticism of U.S. strikes, saying relations should be with respect and loyal cooperation, but he did not retract Spain's refusal to grant base use for Iran operations. 3. What is actually happening? Despite the White House saying cooperation is underway, Spanish officials strongly dispute that. And Spain insists its bases are not being used for attacking Iran, and its military policy hasn't changed. The situation has created a diplomatic rift between Washington and Madrid, with mixed messaging coming from the two governments. This standoff is occurring against the backdrop of the U.S. and Israel's conflict with Iran, which has drawn international criticism and complicated alliance politics within NATO and the EU. Spain's position is unique in Europe right now. Most other allies are more cautious or supportive of U.S. actions. Bottom line, as of today, the United States government claims Spain has agreed to cooperate militarily. Spain strongly denies any such agreement. Tensions over the issue remain high, with trade and military cooperation being points of major disagreement. The real situation as of March 6, 2026 appears to be contradictory public statements from Washington versus Madrid, but no confirmed policy shift by Spain on U.S. base use for strikes against Iran. Thank you for watching Politics Global One, where we break down the stories shaping our world and uncover the truth behind the headlines. If you found this report informative, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you clear, factual reporting on the issues that matter most. Also, make sure you turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update from Politics Global One. Until next time. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, the more we understand politics, the stronger our democracy becomes.